What is art, and what does it mean to study art using the tools of philosophy? Is aesthetic judgment something subjective, objective, or something else entirely? How do I recognize what makes a work beautiful? And how do I judge different kinds of artworks from different media against one another, if at all?
There was a time when beauty was sacred, when a well-formed face was seen as a glimpse into the divine, when cities were temples to proportion and order, when art wasn't like therapy for deranged people, but a hymn to higher things. Beauty is not just an aesthetic, it's a moral force. It separates man from beast, civilization from barbarism, the noble from the base. Or at least it used to. But something happened. Something hideous. A great, greasy, egalitarian hand reaches up from the depths and smears its fingers across the face of civilization. Suddenly, beauty is oppression. Beauty is unfair. And so beauty must be destroyed. There was a time when beauty wasn't up for debate. The Greeks knew it. The Romans knew it. We knew it as late as the Renaissance. As late as the masters, who never asked, what is beauty? They simply showed you, they carved it, they painted it, they built it out of stone to outlast empires. They understood what we seem to be trying to forget, that beauty is very real. That it's not something that is merely in the culturally conditioned eye of the beholder. But it's something innate into the structure, into the fabric of the very world itself. It's a pattern. It's a law, like gravity, like fire. Beauty elevates. It inspires. But above all, it excludes. And the modern world does not like exclusion. It does not like standards. And so we're told that beauty is a construct, that beauty is problematic, that to revere beauty makes one a snob, an elitist, a pretentious reactionary. Somewhere along the way, we as a culture, as a civilization, took a wrecking ball to the ideal of beauty and replaced it with the mediocre, the malformed, the grotesque. And somehow, this is called progress. So how did we get here? Well, look, it didn't happen all at once. It's not even completely happened. The cathedrals still stand. Christian Europe gave us Raphael, gave us Bernini. And for a time, faith and beauty walked together, hand in hand. But beneath the stone masonry, beneath the stained glass, the rot began to take hold. A suspicion of grandeur, a discomfort with elegance, a whisper that perhaps it's better to be lowly than to be great. Now, Christianity didn't kill beauty, but it planted the seed of its undoing. The exaltation of the meek, the suspicion of earthly splendor, the holiness in suffering, the virtue in victimhood, the rejection of the body for the soul. As time passed, the faith that once commanded beauty and commanded reverence, well, the faith waned. But the soft, shitty values, well, they remained. And the democratic impulse took root, not just in politics, but in aesthetics. The idea that no one man should be above another. That no one man is better, no one artist is better, and therefore no art can be said to be better than any other. You look at any city built before the 20th century and you'll see it. The grandeur, the symmetry, the logic to the streets, the rhythm to the skyline. And you compare that to the world, the modern world that we currently live in. Glass shoeboxes, soulless Soviet cubes, grey buildings that look like they're designed to break your spirit, literally like crush your soul. You think it's an accident? You think the people who built the cathedrals just had better taste than the people who made this corporate hellscape that we live in today? No. It's a deliberate act of destruction. It's aesthetic vandalism. Beauty is hierarchy, and hierarchy is offensive. Thus, hierarchy needs to be dismantled. The great museums that were once temples to human achievement have become havens for the crude, for the talentless, for the absurd. Architecture has abandoned proportion. Music has abandoned melody. Fashion has abandoned elegance. And all of this is celebrated. Not in spite of its ugliness, but because of it. Because ugly is easy. Ugly offends no one. Ugly demands nothing of you. And we didn't stop at buildings. We came for the human form itself. The ideal male physique replaced with this emaciated, androgynous, the ideal female form thrown aside for the inclusive, for the grotesque, for the brave, for the stunning and brave. We're told that beauty is subjective. That to find one face more pleasing than another is like an act of violence. To desire excellence is to commit the most unforgivable of sins. And as a consequence, the world is uglier today than it has ever been, not just in its art and not just in its architecture, but in its people. Faces, once noble, have been reduced to slack-jawed, mouth-breathing screen scrollers. Bodies, once disciplined, now sag out of form with neglect. And we are told to celebrate it. We're told that it doesn't matter. We're told that nothing matters. This is fine. But it does matter. You can feel it, even if you've been trained to ignore it. You can feel it when you walk through a beautiful city and your heart lifts. When you see a face sculpted by the finest hand of nature and you ache, and you feel it in the opposite. You feel it in the flat, grey endlessness of modernity, in the lifeless music, in the sexless fashion, in the empty eyes of culture that have been trained to reject beauty, like a body rejecting a transplanted organ. In conclusion, there is no equality in beauty, and there never will be. Beauty is not a birthright. It's not something that you can parcel out and distribute like food stamps or social credit points. It's a rare, unfair thing, and that's what makes it good. That's what makes it sacred. Cope about it, liberals. Cope about it. That we can live in the filth, in the grey, in the mediocrity that they've built for us, or we can reject it. We can choose to see further, to strive further, to hold ourselves to a higher standard, to build, to refine, to ascend. Beauty, Venus, Aphrodite, she's waiting, but she is not going to beg. Okay? She doesn't chase. She attracts. Okay? She's not going to plead with you. And she doesn't care if you want to see her or not, whether you want to embrace her or not. She simply remains above us, towering above us, untouchable, and watching the world that has rejected her crumble into dust.